My beloved child, there is a reason you were guided to this message today. This is not about coincidence. This is about a truth that has been waiting for the perfect moment to reach your heart. Something has finally been revealed. Something your soulmate carried silently for far longer than anyone realized. While the world believed they had moved on, their heart never truly left the place where it first found you. Listen carefully. They never stopped waiting because, deep inside, they believed your story was never truly finished. Every attempt to replace your memory only reminded them of the connection they could never explain. Every smile they forced for others hid a question that never disappeared: what if our journey isn't over yet? For a long time, they stayed silent because fear became stronger than hope. They feared rejection. They feared that too much time had passed. They feared that the bridge between you had been destroyed forever. But despite all those fears, something inside them refused to let go. Recently, an unexpected moment changed everything. It wasn't a dramatic miracle that everyone could see. It was a quiet realization that arrived when they least expected it. A familiar place. An old memory. A simple conversation. Something awakened emotions they had buried for years. Since that day, they have been asking themselves the same question again and again. If destiny gave me one more chance, would I finally tell the truth? Don't skip. Because this is where everything begins to change. They finally admitted to themselves that waiting was never a weakness. Waiting was proof that what they felt had never disappeared. They realized they had spent so much time pretending to move forward that they forgot one important truth. Their heart had been standing in the same place all along, hoping that one day your paths would cross again. But the biggest revelation has not been spoken yet. There is one reason they never stopped waiting. One secret they have hidden from everyone around them. And when that truth is finally revealed, it has the power to change the meaning of everything that happened between you. They tried to convince themselves that time would eventually erase your memory. They accepted invitations they never wanted to accept. They surrounded themselves with people who believed the chapter between the two of you had already ended. They smiled in photographs, attended family gatherings, celebrated birthdays, and kept pretending that life had finally become peaceful. But every single quiet night told a different story. The silence always brought them back to the same place. Back to the same memories. Back to the same unanswered questions about you. They would replay old conversations inside their mind, wondering if there had been one sentence they should have said differently, one decision they should have fought harder for, or one moment they should never have allowed to slip away. No matter how much they tried to silence those thoughts, your presence continued to live inside their heart like a melody they could never forget. Don't skip. Because what happened next changed the way they saw their entire future. There came a day when someone unexpectedly asked them a simple question. If you could change only one decision from your past, what would it be? Everyone around them expected an ordinary answer. But instead of speaking immediately, they became completely silent. Their eyes filled with emotions they had hidden for years. They realized that every success they had achieved, every place they had visited, and every milestone they had celebrated still carried one empty space inside them. That empty space had your name written all over it. At that very moment, they understood something they had never admitted before. They had not been waiting because they were unable to move on. They had been waiting because their heart never truly accepted that your story was over. Deep inside, they believed destiny had only pressed pause. Never stop. From that day forward, little signs began appearing everywhere. A familiar song played in a place they had never heard it before. A stranger unknowingly mentioned a name that reminded them of you. An old photograph appeared while they were searching for something completely different. Even dreams became more vivid than ever. Night after night, they found themselves reliving moments that felt too real to ignore. They woke up asking themselves why those memories refused to disappear. The more they searched for logical answers, the more impossible it became to deny what their heart was trying to tell them. Every coincidence felt like another reminder that some connections are too powerful to be erased by time alone. Meanwhile, people around them continued encouraging them to leave the past behind. Some told them they deserved a fresh beginning. Others insisted that waiting was only wasting precious years. They listened politely, nodded with understanding, and even pretended to agree. But once they were alone again, they quietly whispered something they had never dared to tell another soul. They admitted that no matter how many new faces entered their life, none of them carried the feeling that only you had awakened inside them. It was never about finding someone perfect. It was about realizing that what they once experienced with you could never be duplicated. That realization frightened them because it meant they had been protecting one hope in complete silence all this time. Don't skip. Because the greatest confession was still locked inside their heart. One evening, while looking through things they had not touched in years, they discovered something they thought had been lost forever. It wasn't valuable because of money. It wasn't important because anyone else would understand it. But to them, it became the final reminder that destiny had never truly allowed your story to disappear. Holding that forgotten memory in their hands, they finally broke down emotionally. For the first time, they stopped pretending to be strong. They admitted that every decision they had made since losing you had been influenced by one hidden promise they had secretly made to themselves, that if life ever gave them even the smallest chance to make things right, they would never run away again. But they still haven't revealed what that forgotten memory was. And once they finally explain it, everything you believed about their silence will change forever. For a long time, they believed that silence was protecting both of you. They convinced themselves that staying away was the kindest decision they could make. If they reached out too soon, they feared they would only reopen old wounds. If they waited too long, they feared you would forget them forever. Trapped between those two fears, they chose the only path they thought they had left. They waited in silence. But every passing season only made one truth stronger. Their heart never stopped searching for the moment when fate would finally allow your paths to cross again. Don't skip. Because the reason behind their silence was far deeper than anyone ever imagined. There were countless moments when they almost broke that silence. More than once, they found themselves typing a message with your name on the screen. Their fingers hovered over the send button, their heartbeat racing faster than ever before. They imagined every possible outcome. What if you ignored them? What if you had already found happiness elsewhere? What if hearing from them only brought back pain? Every frightening possibility convinced them to erase the message before it was ever sent. No one knew how many unsent words remained hidden forever. No one realized that behind every quiet day was another conversation they desperately wanted to have with you but never found the courage to begin. As time passed, they started noticing something impossible to ignore. Every important decision they made somehow reminded them of you. Whether they accepted a new opportunity, traveled somewhere unfamiliar, or celebrated a personal achievement, one thought quietly followed them everywhere. They kept wondering how different everything would have felt if you had been standing beside them. Success no longer felt complete. Happiness no longer lasted as long. Even laughter carried a strange emptiness that no one else could understand. That was the moment they finally admitted the truth they had hidden even from themselves. They had never been waiting for the perfect time. They had been waiting for the courage to finally face what their heart had always known. Don't skip. One quiet evening, they looked up at the night sky and whispered something they had never spoken aloud before. They asked for one final chance, not to change the past, but to prove that the love they carried had survived every obstacle, every misunderstanding, and every year of silence. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped asking, "Why did this happen?" Instead, they began asking, "What if our story isn't finished yet?" That single change transformed everything inside them. Fear slowly gave way to hope, and hope became stronger than regret. From that day onward, they made a quiet promise to themselves. If destiny ever placed you in front of them again, they would not hide behind excuses. They would not allow fear to steal another opportunity. They would finally reveal everything they had been carrying for so long, the sleepless nights, the silent prayers, the tears no one ever saw, and the reason they never stopped believing that you were still a part of their future. But there is one final truth they have protected from everyone. A truth so deeply personal that even their closest family has never heard it. When they finally reveal those words, you'll understand why they never truly walked away. And why their heart kept waiting for only one person all this time. Even now, there is one memory they refuse to let fade. It is not because they enjoy living in the past, but because that single memory became the quiet promise that carried them through every lonely season. Whenever life became overwhelming, they would close their eyes and return to that moment in their heart. It reminded them that some connections cannot be measured by time, distance, or silence. While everyone else believed the story had ended long ago, they secretly believed the final chapter had not yet been written. That belief became the light they carried through every difficult day, even when nobody around them understood why they never completely let go. There were moments when they tried to force themselves to forget everything. They packed away old reminders, avoided places filled with memories, and even convinced themselves that speaking your name inside their own heart had become impossible. But every attempt only brought one unexpected realization. The harder they tried to erase the connection, the more clearly they understood how deeply it had become a part of who they were. They finally accepted that real feelings cannot simply be switched off because life becomes complicated. Some emotions patiently remain, waiting for the moment when truth is finally strong enough to replace fear. Don't skip. One day, while sitting completely alone, they asked themselves a question they had avoided for years. If tomorrow were my last chance to tell the truth, what would I regret the most? The answer arrived almost instantly. It wasn't the mistakes they had made. It wasn't the opportunities they had missed. Their greatest regret would have been allowing you to believe they had stopped caring. That thought shook them more deeply than anything else ever had. They realized that silence had protected no one. It had only allowed misunderstandings to grow while their true feelings remained locked away. That realization changed the direction of everything. They stopped pretending that waiting meant giving up. Instead, they began preparing themselves for the possibility that destiny might still create one unexpected opportunity. They started becoming the person they wished they had been years before, more honest, more patient, and no longer controlled by fear. Every lesson life had taught them now pointed toward one simple truth: if love is real, it deserves honesty before anything else. Since then, every sunrise has carried a quiet hope inside their heart. Not a desperate hope, but a peaceful one. They no longer chase impossible answers or force impossible situations. Instead, they believe that if two hearts are truly meant to understand each other, the right moment will arrive without fear needing to control the outcome. Until that day comes, they continue carrying one promise within themselves: that they will never again hide the truth simply because they are afraid of what might happen. But there is still one final confession they have never spoken aloud. One sentence they have rehearsed in their heart countless times but have never had the courage to say. When those words are finally revealed, you will understand why they never stopped waiting for you. And why everything they have kept hidden until now has been leading to that one unforgettable moment. For years, they believed that if destiny truly wanted your paths to cross again, it would happen without them forcing anything. That quiet belief became the reason they never completely closed the door on the connection they once shared with you. Even when life became busy, even when responsibilities grew heavier, and even when everyone around them encouraged them to forget the past, a small voice inside their heart continued whispering the same message. Don't give up yet. The story isn't over. They never spoke those words aloud because they feared no one would understand. But every sunrise and every sleepless night strengthened that silent hope instead of weakening it. There were evenings when they imagined what they would say if they ever stood in front of you again. They replayed the conversation hundreds of times in their mind. Sometimes they imagined apologizing first. Other times they imagined simply thanking you for changing their life in ways they had never appreciated before. They even imagined standing there without saying anything at all, believing that one honest look would express more than years of explanations ever could. Those imaginary conversations became so real that, for a moment, they almost believed they had already happened. But reality always returned, leaving them with the same unanswered question. Will that day ever truly come? Don't skip. One unexpected moment finally gave them an answer they had been searching for. It wasn't a dramatic event witnessed by a crowd. It was a quiet realization born from complete honesty with themselves. They finally admitted that they had spent too many years waiting for the perfect circumstances instead of preparing themselves to speak the truth. They understood that fear had disguised itself as patience. They had called it waiting, but deep inside, they knew they had simply been afraid of hearing an answer they couldn't control. That realization became the turning point of their life. Instead of asking destiny to change everything, they decided to change themselves first. From that day onward, they stopped carrying regret like a burden. They began carrying gratitude instead. Gratitude for every lesson, every challenge, every mistake, and every memory that had shaped the person they had become. They realized that loving someone had never been their greatest achievement. Becoming someone worthy of speaking the truth without fear, that was the real journey they had been avoiding all along. Slowly, they found a peace they had never experienced before. It wasn't the peace of forgetting. It was the peace of finally accepting what their heart had known from the very beginning. Yet, there was still one promise they had never broken. No matter how many seasons passed, they refused to speak badly about what the two of you once shared. Whenever someone suggested that your connection had meant nothing, they quietly disagreed inside their heart. They believed that even if two people become separated by time, distance, or misunderstanding, the love that genuinely transforms a person never becomes meaningless. That belief remained untouched by every disappointment they experienced. And now, after carrying this truth in silence for so long, they are finally ready to reveal the one sentence they have protected more carefully than anything else. It is a confession capable of changing everything you thought you knew about their silence, their waiting, and the choices they made. Once those words are spoken, every unanswered question from the past will begin to make sense. But the most emotional part of their story is still waiting to be revealed. At last, the moment they had imagined for countless years finally arrived. There were no cheering crowds, no dramatic music, and no perfect setting. It was simply a quiet moment where fear could no longer silence the truth. Taking a deep breath, they finally spoke the words they had carried in their heart for so long. I never stopped waiting. Because no matter how far life took me, no one ever replaced what I felt for you. I wasn't waiting for the past to return. I was waiting until I had the courage to become honest with my own heart. Those words lifted a weight they had carried for years. For the first time, they no longer felt trapped by regret. They realized that speaking the truth was more important than controlling the outcome. Whether life brought the two of you together again or led you in different directions, they knew they had finally honored the feelings they had hidden for so long. Don't skip. There is something important to remember from this story. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought against other people, they are fought inside the human heart. Fear, pride, misunderstanding, and silence can keep people apart far longer than distance ever could. Yet honesty has the power to bring peace, even after years of unanswered questions. If this message has touched your heart, let it remind you that hope should never replace wisdom, and love should never replace self-respect. Real relationships are built through truth, communication, trust, and mutual choice, not through waiting alone or expecting destiny to do all the work. Perhaps the greatest lesson in this journey is not that someone waited, but why they waited. They waited because they believed some words are worth saying, even if they arrive later than expected. They waited because they refused to let fear write the final chapter of their story. And when they finally found the courage to speak, they discovered that the greatest freedom comes from living honestly. Thank you for staying until the very end of this story. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves heartfelt stories. Leave a comment below telling us which part of this story touched you the most, and let us know what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Until next time, take care of your heart, keep moving forward, and remember, every meaningful story begins with honesty, hope, and the courage to face the truth.